Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Recovery Stories. My name is Patrick Custer. We're so glad you're here and hope you stick around for this next hour of an amazing, life-changing story right after this brief message.
We are live
Stop Facebook.
where a number of people
The opportunity to share.
she's one of our own.
They aren't like
Parts to your story that's awesome. You found healing. You found
until I got sober.
can't wait for her to share the different aspects of your story and what awesome.
Right.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm so excited to introduce to you our guest today. Jonathan from Sober Nation is here today to share with us his story. Jonathan, so glad to have you here. Thanks again for your time and willingness to come on.
Yeah, glad to be here, and a great way to start off 2021 because a lot's changed over these past years, to say the least.
Yep. Yeah, so true. Well, so real quick, you're based out of Houston, and I know we'll go more into detail about your life now later in the show, but just to kick things off for our listeners, you're connected through, or I got connected to you through some of our rooted staff down there in the Houston location, Houston recovery community, and have seen some of your awesome work through Sober Nation. And so anyway, I'm excited to hear more about your journey, what you're doing to affect change in the world of recovery today. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so I think you wanted me to kind of start from the beginning a little bit here. And so yeah, I live in Houston, Texas. I've lived here pretty much all my life, and man, I had a great childhood growing up. Is really the truth. Grew up in what is now one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the U.S. It's been named recently. There was no addiction in my household or anything like that growing up. Loving parents, and really never wanted for much. I never went without or anything like that. I was always provided for, and I throw that out there because I think there's while most of us that are in recovery understand that, hey, we come from all walks of life and it affects everyone. I think there's still some misconceptions out there that the addicts come from broken homes and so on and so forth, and that just wasn't the case with me, and honestly not for a lot of people I know, but I think if we were to pin it down to like what was the thing that was going on with me, kind of like the driving force in the background, and again, I think this is something you'll hear in a lot of stories. Something just felt off for me. I was social, I had friends, I was athletic, but there was just always part of me that didn't feel like I was good enough or I didn't belong. And for me, that actually stemmed in large part from being kind of the chubby kid growing up. I was always the bigger kid. And again, I had friends. It's not like I was a loner or anything like that. I just never really felt a part of. And even in a group of people and with friends, it just, something just didn't feel quite right. And so, like I said, pretty normal childhood growing up. And when I was, decent student, good athlete. When I was about 8 years old, my parents got divorced. And, I don't know. I think that I don't really want to say like that happened to me. I honestly, the way I look at it now, I was kind of happy it happened. It just wasn't working for my parents. Like growing up, You know, my dad was in the hotel industry. I was going to like events and stuff when I was really young, you know, and around a lot of people. And that in part kind of forced me to mature a little bit faster, I think. And so even, you know, at 8, I was able to say like, hey, this is just kind of not working out. The reason I even mentioned the divorce, though, is because in all honesty, I think I just saw it as an opportunity to kind of act out and start maybe taking advantage and manipulating the situation a little bit. And so, you know, there were some, I say not huge things. Some people would look at this stuff and be like, okay, that's kind of a big deal. There were some behavioral things that started to happen. You know, I kind of like started slacking off in school a little bit. The biggest thing that happened that was really like a prelude to what was to come, a little foreshadowing of what was to come down the line, like in my teenage years and later in life, was I stole a cigar from my dad, and I brought it on the school bus and I sold it to a kid. And, you know, thankfully my mom was really involved in like the PTA and all this stuff. And she kind of got me out of trouble. Now I say thankfully, but that is also a big part of my story, and something that I think really caused more problems down the line is that, you know, I would always get out of these situations. I always had, you know, there was always a reason that I kind of got bailed out, so to speak. You know, there were never, for I don't want to say never, but for a long time, there weren't any consequences for my bad behavior or my actions. And that was one of those things. So, you know, kind of got a slap on the wrist for that. And, you know, as we move on, you know, in middle school, wasn't getting in, you know, huge trouble or anything like that. But, you know, girls became more important than school. Yeah. And it was just kind of this slide into, I guess kind of finding a way to escape, you know. I mean, I think most kids are trying to like find a way to fit in and all that stuff around that age. And, you know, I think it was really in the summer of in between 8th grade and my freshman year that I found weed and alcohol. And I had drinks a couple times, and I mean, I guess I enjoyed it, but the thing that really, for me, like the first time that I smoked pot, I was like, this is the thing. This is the answer. Like, I felt like the thing that had been missing, or like that hole in me, so to speak, was filled by this substance. And, you know, looking back, there was a very fast progression. Mm-hmm. You know, I can say that in me, like, there was that genetic disposition that was immediate, like this switch that was just flipped. And looking back, I can see that, because what happened was it went from, you know, smoking weed with friends, occasionally on the weekends, very quickly to every day, very quickly to by myself, very quickly to kind of that mental obsession that we talk about, and that's talked about in 12-step programs, obviously. So I could see that really quickly, and that's where it started.
Yeah, so, you got to the point.
Yeah, I mean, it was really my freshman year, the summer before my freshman year of high school, and in that freshman year of high school is when this really just like ramped up. I mean, I say jokingly, but seriously, like, high school for me was weed school. You know, I mean, I was just obsessed with it. You know, I mean, I remember very early on talking to one of my buddies. I had decided that not only did this make me feel better and feel like I could be more sociable and all these things and talk to girls and be myself, I had decided like this was going to be my life. Like, I had talked about going moving to Canada and like opening a smoke shop with a buddy. This was literally going to be my life. That's what I had decided. And that was kind of the jumping off point for everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you didn't go to Canada though.
I did not go to Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not go to Canada. So, from there, high school is, I'm just going to be real about it. I had a lot of fun. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, sometimes we get into this deal in recovery where it's like, oh, it was awful all the time. And it wasn't. I kept doing it, and I got pulled in by this thing because initially it was fun. Initially it was enjoyable, until it wasn't, and so I just need to be real about that part of it, because it was fun for a while. And I was there doing this with people that were able to do it and drink or smoke or whatever, and then set it down and get back to school, get back to doing what they needed to do.
Yeah.
So, my freshman year, I was afforded this awesome opportunity to go to a private school here that was really expensive, screwed around, was totally just concentrated on smoking weed and stuff, and let my grades slip, and I got asked nicely not to return to the school. And so this is a new chapter starting, where I started to shape my life around my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
School, jobs, everything. I was trying to find my living situation. I was trying to find and fit everything around my addiction so that I could do what I wanted to do and no one could really say anything about it. So, I ended up going to, for the remainder of high school, going to the public school that I initially wanted to go to, where, all of my friends from my neighborhood were, but also I knew it would be easier to get away with things. I knew it would be easier to skip school, and all of these things. So, I go to this school, I get connected with the people that, I'm looking to get connected with. And really the next, part of all this as well, and I mentioned the selling the cigar on the bus. I can't talk about my story without mentioning and not getting into any of the details or anything, but a big part of my story was selling drugs.
Mm.
And a large part of that meant that as I got into that, my addiction progressed even more. And so it would essentially be like, well, why are people doing, it started out just as weed. And look, I was one of those people like, hey, weed is not a gateway drug. I don't like it's, for me, it was 100%. That was the stepping stone to everything else. I never would have been introduced to any of this stuff or had I not been around, pot. So, it just progressed over throughout high school. Wasn't going to school at all. The getting into, selling pot and everything. Again, people were coming to me for once for something, and it felt good. It definitely boosted my ego like crazy. People wanted me around. And I was
control, power, and connection, all your fingertips.
Exactly, and I mean, and I was making a little money, and so again, it's like, who needs high school,
right?
This is it. Like, this is going to be my career. So to fast forward, hanging out with all the wrong people. One day, I'm skipping school earlier in the day, and my dad comes home, catches me skipping school. I forgot a bunch of pot, and he found it, and he didn't kick me out of the house. I actually, I kind of used that opportunity because he and I weren't getting along 99% because of what I was doing, my actions, my attitudes.
Sure.
And I just said, hey, I'm leaving. And once again, another jumping off point, another situation where I am shaping my life around my addiction. I go and live with a buddy of mine. And I didn't know this at the time. This was really my first introduction to what an alcoholic family looks like. I went and lived with a buddy of mine whose dad had been in and out of rehab for years. And he was in rehab at the time. So it was just my friend alone. This is, my junior year of high school, living in the house. And I went and lived with him. And this meant that we could skip school whenever we wanted. I could do and sell drugs as I wanted. And no one could really say anything. And at this point, going to school was just kind of, honestly, I don't even know why I was going to school at this point. I was missing so much school that I knew, I wasn't going to be able to make it up. I wasn't going to be able to graduate. I was really just doing whatever I wanted. Now let me say, like, at this point, there still really aren't any consequences for any of this. It is still kind of fun. But as we fast forward, like, I'm starting to see, like, people are starting to plan their lives. People are starting to get accepted to colleges. I am not. I am banking on, like, hey, this, selling drugs thing is going to have to be my future, kind of,
right.
And I was lying to myself. And so, the progression of the addiction looked like weed, into cocaine, into pills, and kind of bounced around in that area for a while. And I got some little jobs here and there just to kind of like have a normal, regular looking paycheck coming in, and tried community college, just didn't work out. I mean, I just, I didn't really care. Ended up getting my GED. And just, I kind of just floated around for a few years, and it didn't feel that off because I still had some friends that were here in Houston. Like most of the time, what happens here in Houston is people will go up to Austin or go out of state for school. Like that was what most of my friends were doing. So they were going to UT, they were going to Texas Tech, or they were going, out of state. And so I had some friends that were staying in town. And, the reason I even mention this is where things really started to turn is I had a close friend of mine. When some of these guys ended up, finally going out of town or moving away, a close friend of mine that was up in Austin. And at the time I had graduated into, selling pills. And so there were pill mills all over the place down here. And I had really gotten into pills. And this is where my addiction really started to progress and change. And it was exactly like I described. I hated pills. I hated doing pills. And it was one of these times where I'm like, what is it that these people like about these pills? And after a couple times of trying it, boom, just like that, I was hooked, and I was hooked on opiates. And because of me selling and look, I'm not trying to glorify any of this. I just have to mention it because it's part of my story. Because I was, in that world of selling it and everything, there was a large supply. And so while there would be people coming to me that, I wasn't thinking about it too much, but these people were starting to go to rehab. These people were starting to probably experience overdoses. And here I was judging these people. But what I didn't realize at the time is my use, the amount that I was taking was way higher than any of these people. My tolerance was way higher. And so, I had all these pills, and the short of it is it gave some to some buddies, and a really close friend of mine up in Austin ended up going to 6th Street where all the bars are, taking a bunch of these pills. Was driving home one night, didn't have his seatbelt on, ran off the road, killed in a car wreck. And the whole reason I mention this is because I completely blamed myself for this. This really sent my use, the amount I was using, into overdrive. And this gave me a really good excuse to just say, like, see, I have a reason for doing this. I have a reason for using like I use. I have a reason for totally sabotaging my life. And because, you know, the main thing that I remember is I remember this guy's mom at the wake. It was actually at his house, you know, coming up to me, and I was just numb. I hadn't, you know, expressed anything about it. And there we are with all of our friends. And she comes up and she, you know, gets on one knee and she looks me in the eye and she's like, you know, are you okay? And I just started bawling, crying. And, you know, because I'm thinking like, man, I took her son from her. You know, I totally blamed myself 100% for that. So again, just another jumping off point to harder use, using more. And as things move along down the line, you know, I'm in my mid-20s now, you know, or later, starting to get, mid to late 20s. You know, I can't hold down a real job anymore. I am physically dependent on these pills. And it's slowly getting to the point where, you know, I don't have this big supply around anymore. And I am really starting to cross all of these lines and do all these things that I never said I would do, like stealing from people, like, you know, lying to my parents to get money, doing all of these really shady things. And it's this like shame cycle, right? And so I do this. I need the drugs. I do this bad thing, you know, whatever it is, stealing or whatever, to get the drugs, or to get the money to get the drugs. And I say, okay, I'm just going to kind of brush this under the carpet. And then the drugs are gone and I'm physically dependent. I need more. And then I feel awful about it. And then I'm right back where I started. You know, and so there were, through the years, like so I actually went to the Right Step here in Houston. And prior to me going into treatment, I had sought out, number one, a Suboxone study before Suboxone was even on the market. I went through that. There was a little bit of counseling. I didn't do any 12-step anything or anything like that. Basically went and got the medication, thought I was fixed, thought I could just smoke weed, thought I could just drink, right back to the pills. Did 2 outpatient detoxes with Suboxone at Right Step locations, went and got the medication, didn't stick around for the meetings, didn't take any of the suggestions, didn't do anything that these great counselors were suggesting that I do. Again, just got the medication, physically felt better. And, you know, in my mind, when I wasn't doing the pills, I was sober. I mean, I even remember going to a music festival here, and there was a girl that I hadn't seen in years. The last time I saw her, I was just totally messed up on pills. She had basically kicked me out of her party because I was just so messed up. She was really concerned about me. And I saw her at this music festival and she was like, you know, how are you doing? And I was like, I had just gotten out of this outpatient thing and I wasn't taking pills. And I was like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm sober. And she looks at me and she goes, Jonathan, you have a beer in each hand, you know? And it just, it didn't, it didn't click for me. Like I thought I could be one of these people that could manage this. I couldn't manage it. You know, I could not manage it. And, you know, so more and more there start to become consequences. You know, I'm beating myself up And I have this excuse over my friend dying. I'm starting to have run-ins with the law. I mean, kind of to keep that short, like, thank God I only ended up in jail one time for like a few hours, and it had nothing to do with drugs or anything like that. My friend pretty much immediately bailed me out. So again, like, people are literally bailing me out. Not, the consequences aren't that real. Probably the craziest thing to happen, had a, run in with Secret Service where they thought I was printing counterfeit money, had to go take a lie detector test down at the Federal Reserve building. So
Wow.
I'm mentioning this because this is like in my mind. You would think this would, for a normal person, this would be a wake-up call.
Right.
Like, Jonathan, what is going on? And for me, it's like a movie. And as long as I can keep using and do what I want to do, then it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep testing the limits. Relationships are starting to fall apart. I'm living with the girl that is my now wife, which, I guess I'll talk about, but that's a miracle there. She was basically just supporting me at one point. I was kind of just like living with her, and she was just putting up with my crap. I'm starting to have, there's starting to be physical repercussions for this. There were times where I was blacking out, and one of these times where I was trying to like figure out, like, okay, I guess I'm not going to do pills. I'm going to do something else. I, started smoking that spice stuff. I had a seizure because of that. Ended up, I fell, cracked my head open, had to get staples in the back of my head. Craziness, right? And even in a moment like that, where I go to the hospital and I'm getting staples in the back of my head, of course they're offering me pain pills.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so pissed that my girlfriend was like, no, he can't have pain pills. That was the only thing that I was thinking about. That mental obsession just had me locked up. I couldn't break out of it. So I'm going to that's kind of what it looked like. I think we gave, a good picture there. I will mention, I mentioned my friend, I'll just say his name's Tommy. My buddy Tommy that passed away. He's actually in the cemetery that is a few blocks away from the Right Step location that I went to before it moved, actually, here in Houston, the main location before it moved. Right down the street, there's this cemetery. And, before I went into treatment in 2013, there were about a dozen friends of mine, or people that I knew my age, in that cemetery, all related to drunk driving, overdoses, murders over, drug dealing stuff. Now, mind you, these are, I have to say again, like, these were all guys and girls that came from good upbringings. Most of them didn't have addiction in the household, so again, like, I think there's this misconception sometimes that it's like, yeah, broken home, kid, parents were probably using, someone in the house was drinking or an alcoholic. Not the case for me, not the case for most of the people that I knew that lost their lives to this, or are still struggling with this, or are in recovery now. And thankfully, I do know a lot of people that are in recovery now that I grew up with, that got a chance to get out of all that. But what happened for me was, and the way that this kind of all came to an end, so to speak, is that I had this neighbor that had a bunch of, I noticed, had a bunch of young guys coming in and out of his condo. And where my mind was at the time, I was like, well, this guy's selling something.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I walked up to him. I was like, well, I'm not going to ask this guy if he knows where to get any hard drugs. Like, I'm just going to ask him if he knows where to get any weed. And I was like, hey, man, do you know where to get any, any good pot? And he was, he was super cool about it. He just kind of laughed it off. Turned out this guy was in AA. He took me to a couple meetings. And I wasn't ready at the time. After this, I ended up going to another outpatient detox. And just got the medication, didn't do what was suggested, any of the counseling, anything like that. And, but he was super nice. It took me to a few meetings and so on and so forth. When, it finally got to a point for me where I don't want to say I didn't have any options. There's always other options. One of the things I'm really grateful for, and I don't know if this was, kind of my higher powers plan. I guess it was in part that, or if it was just I was so obsessed with this one particular drug that I was using, taking pills. So many people I know graduated into heroin. That was the next logical step. Unfortunately, it was cheaper, it was more readily available. That didn't happen for me. I kind of stuck with this pill thing, and that became really difficult to get my hands on and more expensive. And it got to a point where my girlfriend had let my family know what was going on, rightfully so. And I was just kind of getting cornered. And there was one last ditch effort to go get high one more time. And I just remember I did that. I think I took my cell phone and pawned it or something like that. It was like the last thing I had.
Right.
I mean, most of my addiction was spent at the pawn shop, basically. I mean, I was just there all the time. Yeah. And it was such a scary day. I don't remember a lot of my using or first times using or any of that, like a lot of people do. What I do remember is this day, because I went and I got some pills and I felt nothing. I couldn't get high. I couldn't get high. And that was so scary because this thing that I depended on for years to make me feel right physically, mentally, for a long time, I was just taking it at this point just to function, right? Just to get up and go through the day. And it was not working anymore. And that's a really scary place for people like us, because that is where a lot of people graduate and say, well, I need to take more, or I need to do a harder drug like heroin. And for me, what ended up happening is like, as I got cornered more and more and I realized the drugs weren't working anymore, I was going to go one more time after that. I was like, okay, I know that didn't work. I'm going to try one more time. And it was just, I'm just going to call it, a moment from my higher power where I locked my keys in my car.
Oh, wow.
And that was basically it. And my mom was trying to help me out. She did not know what to do. You were kind of asking like what my family was thinking about all this. They had no experience with any of this. They had heard about other, friends or friends' kids dealing with stuff like this. My mom was like a little more clued in about what was going on. My dad was totally clueless. No experience with any of this, did not understand whatsoever. They were trying to be helpful though. They were trying to be there for me, but it's tough, right? Like when I'm lying and I'm still trying to manipulate the situation, but also kind of asking for help at the same time. It's a really tough situation. What do you do? What do you do?
And it looks different. The loving an addict is counterintuitive to what we think,
Yeah.
I know our parents got the raw end of the deal when it comes to that, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've tried to understand that and really empathize with that more and more, and in recovery. But the gist of it is that my mom came over and we were trying to find a place to go, and the Right Step came up, and I think she had heard about the Right Step and talking to a few family friends about what was going on, and I was just being a little jerk, basically, to my mom, totally ungrateful. I was still trying to manipulate the situation. Maybe she'll give me some money, to go get high again. There was no way that was going to happen, luckily, because that could have been the moment where I really overdid it or did something really stupid. Mm-hmm. But I called over to the Right Step, and I was like, Mom, there's no way. It was Friday evening, like it's 6 o'clock. It's like, there's no way they're going to let me in. I called over and the guy was super nice on the phone. He's like, you know what? We've actually got one bed in our detox. Just get your things. Just come on over. And so, my mom and my girlfriend got some clothes together for me and grabbed some stuff, and they brought me over. And from the moment I walked in the door, I just felt this like relief, like this weight come. I can still like feel it. I mean, man, like I feel the like emotion sometimes when I think about this, because I knew the plan was to go there for detox, which luckily wasn't that bad, because like I said, I kind of run out of money and just what wasn't taking as much as I had been in the past. Mm-hmm. I knew I was going to go there for detox. I didn't really think I was going to stay. We were going to kind of figure things out, and I was in detox, and one of the nurses let me go into kind of this nightly wrap up one night. I was just like, I needed to do something. I was in there like cleaning my room, and you can only do that so much and watch TV or whatever so much. And I was just like, I need to do something. And I saw all these guys, and I went into this nightly wrap up. And, like I said, I had been introduced to some 12-step meetings before, but I definitely wasn't listening, but I wasn't hearing anything before either. Mm-hmm. This was the first time these guys were going around the room and talking about their days. They were in different stages in treatment, right? Some were just getting there, some were about to graduate. And it got around to me, and man, I just broke down. And, and I realized, I was like, I need to be here. I need to be here. I'm going to figure out a way to stay here. My dad in particular was, nice enough to afford me that opportunity to stay. And so to fast forward, all these things that I mentioned, not doing before, I started to do. I started to take suggestions. I had a really great counselor, and I mentioned my friend Tommy dying, and she helped me process that, and I wrote a letter to him. And it's funny because some of this stuff is so simple yet so complicated, because what it really came down to for me to be able to start processing that was to be in a place where I was open-minded. And, she kind of just asked me the question like, hey, if the tables were turned and Tommy gave you some pills and let's just say you got seriously hurt in a car accident and you guys are sitting there talking in the hospital, would you be blaming Tommy? No. Wow. Who would have thought like a question that simple would, kind of start to change things, right? And so the biggest thing that happened to me before I kind of move on to what things are like now, I had tried to grab a sponsor, and it turned out I wasn't going to see this guy. He lived on the other side of town. Just wasn't going to work out. And so we went to Intergroup here in Houston, the AA headquarters, and they have like a bookstore and some other stuff on a field trip. Right. And man, traffic here in Houston is crazy. Traffic was crazy. The bookstore was about to close. There was like 10 minutes left. And I walk in, and the only person in the bookstore is my old neighbor. And it was like his 7-year sobriety birthday. And what I didn't mention is I had kind of told this guy to like go screw himself. And because he was sending me daily meditations and stuff like that. And it just really annoyed me.
Yep.
And, you know, my introduction to what recovery is about and what it means to me and what I really try to carry is exactly what this interaction looked like with this guy. He thought I was just there, you know, good for him. He thought I was just there with a bunch of sober people, that I had gotten and stayed sober. And I said, you know, no, I'm at the right step. And this guy literally just gave me a big hug. And he was like, when can I come see you?
Wow.
And for me, you know, I would consider that a spiritual experience. I was literally shaking. You know, what are the chances? Because all of these life, you know, altering moments and these moments where I could have died, these moments where I could have ended up in jail, I could have ended up like all these people, you know, that are in the cemetery. And I didn't. I really couldn't deny the fact that they weren't coincidences anymore. There were too many of them. They were too frequent. It was taking way too much energy to just blow these things off. And, you know, this guy was nice enough to come down and start working, you know, the steps with me. And so I jumped right in, and, you know, he gave me some really good advice when I was there in treatment. He said, do your mental laundry here. You know, do what they're telling you to do here at the Right Step, what your counselors are telling you to do. Take full advantage of this. So I did that, ended up doing IOP, great counselors there as well. Did everything they told me to do there, really jumped headfirst into a 12-step program, working the steps, getting involved. You know, in the graduation, you know, everyone did this thing. It's like, well, how are you going to walk the walk? And everyone said the exact same thing, right? Everyone said, well, I'm going to go to meetings. I'm going to read the big book. I'm going to pray and meditate. I'm going to do all these things. And it just hit me so hard when I was in treatment that I hadn't given anything except, you know, maybe getting high and selling drugs, a real effort in such a long time, that I was going to give this an honest effort. Because I kept hearing people tell me that if you, you know, apply yourself to this like you did doing drugs, or even, you know, at a 50% effort or whatever, you know, you hear all these numbers thrown around.
Yeah.
That you'll stay, you know, that you'll stay sober. And I think the real thing that I saw that I wanted in the people that had what I wanted, which we're told to look for, is that these people weren't just getting and staying sober. They were, you know, they were happy.
Yeah.
And the guys that really had what I wanted, because like I said, I was so out of shape for most of my life. They looked like they were in good shape. It looked like they, you know, were doing something with their lives in terms of their careers. And I felt like I had a shot at all that. And, you know, so I jumped right into it. And, a big part of my, you know, new life became fitness. You know, I had always wanted to get in shape, and literally in treatment, I started like jogging with a couple people. I started lifting weights, and you know, as I did the recovery deal, started to get certifications for personal training, started training people in a gym, left the gym, built a gym here at my house, then decided to go into online health coaching, so fitness and nutrition coaching. And that kind of all evolved into Recover Health, or RCVR Health, where I specialize in working with people in addiction. And that led to now doing the Sober Nation podcast. So, you know, I mean, today, to say that my life is different, you know, and I probably should have mentioned my sobriety day. My sobriety day is May 15th, 2013.
Awesome.
You know, so I've got a little over 7 years sober, and man, my life today, I was told, many times early on that that there was really no limit or ceiling to how good my life could get in recovery, and that's absolutely been my experience. I've also heard people say, like, had I written down or gotten exactly what I wanted early on in sobriety, I would have been selling myself short. That was the truth for me. I really couldn't, my mind could not comprehend the things that have happened, having my own business, getting married, being able to, I love traveling, not now in COVID times so much as that happening, but, I've been able to travel the world with my now, wife. Like I said, this is the woman that went through all this craziness with me. We're now married. Earlier this year, we had our daughter, Ellie, who's a complete gift. It's really, I had gone to the point where I thought I was going to be dead by 30 years old. And to look at the life I have now, the people that I have around me now, and to be able to look in the mirror and actually like the guy that I see, and not feel like that kid that just isn't a part of or is lost, it is an amazing thing. It just really speaks to, I think it really speaks to what recovery is all about. And I mean, man, I know this sounds like such a cliche, but seriously, if I can figure out how to do this thing, then it is possible for absolutely anyone. Because I thought I was one of those hopeless cases, that just wasn't going to make it out of this deal.
Man, wow. You have had quite the journey. I always like to ask this question, for that person that's struggling similarly to, your life story and the path that you went down specifically. What kind of last bit of encouragement, thought would you like to leave with that person?
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course I'd have to say, just don't give up, because as you heard in my story, I tried this multiple times, but we also, I would say, be honest with yourself, because as I just say, I tried, I didn't really try. I had to get real with myself that I had never given this an honest effort. I had never given myself the opportunity to really try this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, give it an honest shot. Don't just go through the motions like I did so many times. Really do it. Do the socially awkward things, like going to meetings and reaching out to people you don't know, because the social awkwardness of asking another guy that I didn't know for his phone number, the social awkwardness of, reaching out to people outside of meetings, the social awkwardness of sharing what was going on with me and where I was, is really what saved my life.
Yeah.
So it is about getting out of your comfort zone. It's about giving it, a really honest effort.
Awesome. A resounding amen to that. All right. Lastly, I just wanted to ask if you'd share with our viewers and listeners how they can connect with you on Recover Health or Sober Nation.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Recover Health website, you can go there and see some, client transformations and hear from clients, and a little bit more about my story and just kind of what, where health and fitness tie into to my recovery. Because I really do think that's a vital part, the physical health aspect, a vital part of really sobriety in general. Yeah. But it's rcvrhealth.com. And then, yeah, the Sober Nation FM podcast, we put out new episodes every Monday, and we've got, all kinds of awesome guests that come on and share their stories. And you can listen to that wherever you stream music, Apple Music, Spotify, and just search Sober Nation FM, and you can find it right there.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, with that, Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and your story. And know that a lot of people are going to get something very important out of that. So,
yeah, I hope so. Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. All right, everyone, be safe. Take care of yourselves and be kind to one another.